The signal from the shadows. Captain Elias Morgan leaned back in his command chair, his eyes fixed on the vastness outside the observation window of the Aurora Dawn. Stars glinted like scattered gemstones across an endless black velvet canvas, a spectacle that, even after years in space, still held him in awe. For Elias, these quiet, peaceful moments between missions were sacred, a reminder of the quiet beauty that the cosmos offered beyond the battles and political strife that had defined much of his career. The Aurora Dawn, a sleek exploratory vessel designed for deep space missions, had served him well. But today, something felt different, as if the silence of space itself was holding its breath. Suddenly, a blip sounded on the main console, breaking the serene quiet. Elias' eyes darted to the flashing screen where a notification blinked. Unknown signal detected. He leaned forward, alert, and activated the console. Beside him, First Officer Maeve Carter, known for her sharp instincts, immediately took notice. "Captain," Maeve said, her voice steady yet cautious. "We're picking up an unidentified signal coming from the Malakar Nebula. Coordinates indicate it's originating from deep within the shadow sector. We've got no records of any known activity there." Elias nodded, feeling a familiar tingle of curiosity mixed with the pulse of danger. The Malakar Nebula was an infamous part of space, unclaimed and avoided by most due to its dense fields of volatile gases and asteroid clusters. Many ships had been lost within its shrouded regions, and rumors of piracy and rogue AIs only heightened its dark reputation. "Bring up the signal," Elias ordered. Maeve adjusted the controls, and the signal crackled to life, a strange mix of static and alien sounds that seemed to pulse with a strange rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. But then, amidst the strange sounds, they'd heard something chilling, a faint, distressed voice speaking in a language that seemed both foreign and vaguely familiar. Maeve's eyes widened. "That sounds like a distress call, a request for help." Elias tapped the side of his chair thoughtfully. "Translate what we can and try to clean up the signal. I want to know what we're dealing with." As the signal began to stabilize, the voice became clearer, though it was still heavily distorted. After a few moments, a rough translation scrolled across the screen. "This is the last survivor. Please, anyone. We are trapped. They're coming." Elias felt a shiver run down his spine. He had heard his share of distress calls, but this one carried a level of desperation that struck him deeply. "Captain, should we investigate?" Maeve asked, her voice steady but her eyes questioning. "The nebula is dangerous, and we have no way of knowing what kind of ship or threat is out there." Elias hesitated, weighing the risks. There was a high chance this could be a trap. Many space pirates lured ships into isolated areas with false distress signals. But something about this call felt authentic, and Elias knew he couldn't ignore it, especially if there was a life at stake. "We go in," Elias decided. "Set course for the signal source and prepare the crew for potential hostile encounters. We'll proceed with caution, but we'll answer that call." Maeve nodded and issued orders across the bridge. Within minutes, the Aurora Dawn adjusted its course, and the stars shifted as they entered the outer edges of the Malakar Nebula. The ship's sensors immediately lit up with warning indicators as they detected massive energy fluctuations and shifting gas clouds. As they moved deeper, the nebula's gases thickened, casting the ship in hues of purple and green that shimmered against the darkness. Visibility was low, and the hull creaked as particles scraped along its surface. Suddenly, the ship's lights dimmed and the main power flickered. "Captain, we're experiencing interference from the nebula's energy fields," Maeve reported. "Switching to auxiliary power and stabilizing shields." Elias kept his gaze steady. "Maintain our course, keep the shields up and prepare for any further disturbances." Just as Maeve stabilized the systems, a proximity alarm blared. Elias shot a look at the monitor and saw a faint blip, a small damaged vessel drifting nearby, partially hidden by a swirling gas cloud. "Bring it up on screen," Elias ordered, leaning forward in anticipation. The view screen shifted, revealing a small ship, its hull battered and pocked with scorch marks. The vessel looked like a cargo freighter, but it bore signs of heavy battle damage. It was barely holding together, and Elias could see dim emergency lights flickering from within. "Life signs?" he asked. Maeve checked the sensors. One life form detected, but it's weak. Whoever they are, they're in critical condition. Elias took a breath. "Lock onto their position and prepare the med bay. We'll bring them aboard. Maeve, you're with me." As the Aurora Dawn latched onto the vessel, Elias and Maeve joined the rescue team in the docking bay. The ship's hatch groaned open, and with a hiss, Elias stepped into the freighter's darkened corridor. A sense of eerie silence settled over them as they moved carefully through the dimly lit passageway, following the life sign reading deeper into the vessel. At last, they reached a small cabin where they found her, the lone survivor. She was slumped against the wall, her green skin shimmering faintly even in the low light. Her form was humanoid, but clearly alien, with elongated limbs and delicate features that seemed to glow. Her eyes, half open, held a strange golden gleam that sparkled as she lifted her head slightly to look at them. Maeve moved forward cautiously, reaching out to check the woman's vitals. "She's alive, but only barely. We need to get her to the med bay." The woman's eyes flickered open fully, and she looked at Elias, her gaze filled with a strange mix of fear and relief. In a weak voice, she spoke in broken English, her voice tinged with a musical accent. "You came," she whispered, her words laced with exhaustion and gratitude. Elias knelt beside her, offering a gentle nod. "We're here to help. You're safe now. What happened to your ship?" The woman struggled to speak, her voice barely a whisper. "We were ambushed, my crew, all gone. They took everything." Her voice trailed off, and Elias realized she was slipping back into unconsciousness. "Maeve, let's get her aboard immediately." They lifted her gently and returned to the Aurora Dawn, where the medics quickly set to work stabilizing her. Elias watched from the doorway, a sense of unease settling over him. Who had attacked this woman's ship, and why had she been left alive? Hours passed before the woman awoke. When she finally opened her eyes, Elias was there, ready to ask the questions burning in his mind. "Who are you?" he asked gently, wanting to offer her a sense of safety, but needing to understand the danger they now faced. She looked at him, her golden eyes filled with a mixture of pain and resilience. "My name is Zara," she said slowly, each word spoken with careful precision. "I was a prisoner. My people were traders, but we were ambushed by the Raksari, a rogue faction known for exploiting the weak. They captured us, used us as bait to lure others." Elias clenched his jaw. The Raksari were infamous in certain parts of the galaxy, a ruthless group that preyed on isolated ships and vulnerable travelers. But why had they left her alive? Zora's eyes met his again, filled with a haunting determination. "They used me as bait. I escaped, but they will come. They always come." Elias felt a wave of protectiveness stir within him. He glanced at Maeve, who nodded knowingly, her expression mirroring his resolve. They had brought Zora aboard, and now they were bound to protect her. But he also knew that Zara's words hinted at a larger threat, one that would not stop at a single ambush. "We'll do everything we can to protect you, Zara," Elias said, his voice firm. "The Raksari may come, but they won't take you again. Not while you're with us." Zara gave a faint, grateful nod, her expression softening as she finally allowed herself to relax. As he left the med bay, Elias knew that the simple mission he'd planned was now something far more complex. A battle was brewing on the horizon, one that would test the Aurora Dawn and its crew in ways they had never anticipated. But Elias was ready for the challenge, knowing that their fates were now intertwined with Zora's, and the journey ahead would be one of courage, resilience, and perhaps even redemption. Shadows of the past. Elias Morgan found himself standing by the observation window, his mind churning over the revelations, Zara had shared with him. The Raksari were a formidable foe, but their methods and motivations had always remained shrouded in mystery. They moved through space like shadows, striking suddenly and vanishing without a trace. Though he had faced numerous threats over the years, the Raksari operated with a cruelty and cunning that few could match. For them to ambush Zara's vessel and leave her behind as bait suggested a calculated strategy, one that chilled Elias to the core. Maeve entered the bridge, her face sullen but focused. She'd been by his side for years, her presence a steadying force that he'd come to rely on. "Captain, Zara's condition is stable, but she's still weak. The medics say she'll need time to recover fully," Maeve reported, crossing her arms as she leaned against the console beside him. Elias nodded, his eyes still fixed on the darkness beyond the window. "She mentioned that the Raksari would come. They might be following us even now, waiting for the right moment to strike." Maeve's eyes narrowed. "If they're using Zara as bait, it means they want something from us, or her. We don't know their objective, but it's clear they're not going to let her go that easily." Elias turned to face her, a determined look in his eyes. "Prepare the crew. We need to be ready for anything. I want patrols on every deck, and keep our weapons systems on standby. If the Raksari want to fight, we'll be ready." As Maeve went to relay the orders, Elias's mind drifted back to Zara. He hadn't had a chance to fully understand who she was, beyond the tragedy she'd endured. But if they were to protect her, they needed more than just firepower. They needed answers. A few hours later, Elias made his way to the med bay, where Zara lay resting in a small, quiet room. The lights were dimmed, casting a soft glow over her delicate features. Her eyes were closed, but her breathing had steadied, and there was a hint of color returning to her green skin. Gently, he knocked on the doorframe, not wanting to startle her. Zara's eyes fluttered open, and when she saw him, she offered a faint, grateful smile. "Captain," she said softly, her voice still weak but more stable than before. Elias nodded, stepping closer. "I wanted to check on you. You've been through a lot, and I understand if you're not ready to talk, but if there's anything you can tell us, anything that might help us understand what we're up against, it could make a difference." Zara sat up slowly, wincing as she adjusted herself. Elias waited patiently, watching as she gathered her thoughts. Her golden eyes seemed to glisten with unspoken memories, a depth of pain that hinted at a story far more complex than he'd initially realized. "The Raksari," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "They don't just attack randomly. They're hunters, in a sense, but not for resources. They're searching for something ancient. They believe it will grant them power over the galaxy." Elias listened intently, his mind racing to piece together the fragments of her story. "And how do you fit into this? Why would they leave you alive?" A shadow passed over Zara's face, and she looked away, her hands clasping together tightly. "My people, the Varelians, we were once guardians of a relic, an artifact from the dawn of our civilization. We called it the Hot Stone. It was said to hold immense power, though none of us fully understood what it was. My ancestors protected it for centuries, passing down knowledge only to the trusted few." She paused, her gaze distant as if she was seeing a faraway place. "But when the Raksari learned of it, they believed it was a weapon, a tool that could be used to bend reality to their will. They hunted us down, one by one, until only a few of us were left. They captured me, thinking I could lead them to it." Elias felt a surge of anger on her behalf, but he kept his expression calm. "And did you?" Zara's expression hardened, a fierce light in her eyes. "No, I would never betray my people's legacy. But I escaped before they could force it out of me. I thought I could disappear, hide among the stars, but they found me again. My crew, they gave their lives to protect me, to give me a chance to survive." Her voice trembled, and she looked down, her hands clenched in her lap. "I don't know if the Hot Stone is real or just a legend, but the Raksari believe in it with a fanaticism that's terrifying. They'll stop at nothing to find it." Elias took a deep breath, absorbing her words. If the Heartstone existed, it was more than just a myth. And if the Raksari wanted it badly enough to wipe out an entire people, it was clear that the threat they posed went beyond any ordinary faction. "Zara," he said, his tone gentle but firm, "as long as you're on this ship, you're under my protection. We'll do everything we can to keep you safe." She looked up, a flicker of hope in her eyes, but there was still a hint of doubt, as if she couldn't quite believe his words. "Thank you, Captain," she murmured. I don't want anyone else to suffer because of me." Elias shook his head. "That's not your burden to bear. We're all in this together now." Back on the bridge, Elias gathered his senior officers to relay Zara's story. The atmosphere was tense as they processed the enormity of the situation. The Heartstone, if it existed, was likely an artifact of immense significance, perhaps even a weapon of unimaginable power. "We have two choices," Elias began, his voice steady. "We can try to outrun the Raksari, or we can face them head-on. Either way, they won't stop until they get what they want." Maeve, ever the strategist, folded her arms thoughtfully. "The Raksari are known for their cunning. They don't engage in direct combat unless they're confident of victory. If they're after us, they're likely preparing for a confrontation." One of the ship's tactical officers, Lieutenant Kellen, chimed in. "Captain, if we engage them here, in the nebula, we'll be at a disadvantage. But if we can lure them away to more open space, we might have a better chance." Elias nodded, considering the idea. "Agreed. We'll set a course for the nearby Altaurus system. It's mostly empty, but there's enough room for us to maneuver. If they follow us, we'll be ready." With a course set and the crew on high alert, the Aurora Dawn left the eerie glow of the Malakar Nebula, speeding toward the Altaurus system. The journey was tense, with everyone anticipating an encounter at any moment. Elias stayed close to the bridge, his focus sharp, his mind racing with strategies for the inevitable battle. Hours passed, and just as they approached the outer edges of the Altaurus system, the ship's sensors picked up a series of approaching vessels. A cold sense of recognition settled over Elias as he saw the signature profiles of the Raksari ships. "Captain, they're closing in," Maeve reported, her voice tense. 3 ships, heavily armed. Elias clenched his fists, his gaze steely. "All hands to battle stations. Prepare for evasive maneuvers and power up the main cannons. If they want a fight, we'll give them one." The Aurora Dawn swerved as the Raksari ships drew closer, their weapon systems coming online. The lead ship, larger and more menacing than the others, loomed like a predator stalking its prey. As the enemy ships opened fire, the Aurora Dawn responded with a barrage of its own, the two forces locked in a deadly dance amidst the stars. Explosions lit up the void as energy blasts collided, and the ship rocked under the impact of incoming fire. But Elias was unyielding, his focus unwavering as he directed his crew with precision. "Target their engines," he ordered, his voice steady. "If we can disable them, we might be able to buy ourselves some time." The ship's cannons fired, their energy beams striking one of the smaller Raksari ships, causing its engines to sputter and fail. The enemy vessel drifted off course, spiraling away as it lost control. But just as it seemed they were gaining an advantage, a new blip appeared on the sensors, a massive ship, dwarfing even the lead Raksari vessel. It was a Raksari warship, an imposing dreadnought bristling with weaponry. Elias's heart pounded as he realized the full scope of what they were facing. This was no ordinary ambush. The Raksari had brought everything they had, a force that could wipe out entire fleets. "We're not outmatched," he said, his voice filled with a fierce resolve. "Not yet." As the dreadnought closed in, Elias glanced at Maeve and the rest of his crew, their faces set with determination. They were ready to fight, ready to protect each other and Zara, no matter the odds. "Let's show them what the Aurora Dawn is capable of," he said, his voice echoing with conviction. And with that, the battle truly began. The turning tide. The battle raged around the Aurora Dawn, filling the void with bursts of light and clouds of debris as the Raksari ships circled, pressing in on all sides. Explosions flared as the ship's shields absorbed hit after hit, but Captain Elias Morgan held his ground, his gaze focused and steady. Each move he made, each command he issued, was part of a complex dance, a precise blend of offense and defense that kept his ship one step ahead, even in the face of overwhelming odds. "Shields down to 40%, Maeve called out, her voice tense but unwavering. She was tracking multiple targets, her hands moving over the controls with practiced precision. The bridge buzzed with the focus and determination of a crew ready to give everything they had. "Reinforce the shields and prepare to angle the hull toward their fire," Elias ordered, his tone firm but calm. "We'll draw them closer and hit their engines from behind when they're in range." The Aurora Dawn shifted, its movements graceful despite the violent onslaught it faced. It glided through space, maneuvering to position itself strategically. The Raksari ships followed, their cannons lighting up as they closed in, oblivious to the trap Elias was laying. "Now," Elias commanded, and the Aurora Dawn's cannons fired with pinpoint accuracy, sending a powerful volley toward the lead Raksari ship. The blasts hit their mark, slamming into the enemy's engines and sending the ship spiraling out of control. It tumbled through space, its thrusters sputtering, and within seconds, it was out of the fight. A cheer went up on the bridge, a small victory in the midst of chaos. But the battle was far from over. Maeve's eyes flicked to the sensor display, where a massive blip loomed, the Raksari dreadnought, the true threat in this fight. It was closing in, its formidable silhouette bristling with weaponry, casting an imposing shadow over the stars. Captain Maeve said, her voice barely concealing her worry. "The dreadnought's moving into position. If it gets within firing range, it could tear us apart." Elias clenched his jaw, calculating their options. The dreadnought was built for sheer firepower and intimidation, and he knew that a direct confrontation would likely end in disaster. But they weren't out of moves just yet. "Divert power to the engines," he ordered. "We're going to lure them into the debris field left from the Malakar Nebula, force them to maneuver in close quarters." Maeve's eyes lit up with understanding. They won't be able to bring their full firepower to bear in the debris field. "Brilliant, Captain." With a flick of his wrist, Elias sent the Aurora Dawn speeding toward the remnants of the nebula, a region filled with floating asteroids, drifting wreckage, and unstable energy pockets. It was a dangerous place to navigate, but Elias knew that the Raksari dreadnought, with its enormous size and bulky frame, would struggle to keep up. As they neared the field, the ship rocked under another barrage, and the bridge lights flickered, dimming momentarily. Structural integrity holding at 75%, called out Kellen, the tactical officer, his voice steady despite the tension crackling through the bridge. "Good enough," Elias muttered, keeping his focus on the display as he guided the Aurora Dawn through the twisting path of obstacles. The ship wove in and out of the debris, skimming close to the floating remnants of long-forgotten battles, its hull grazing against shattered metal and stone as they navigated the perilous field. Behind them, the dreadnought loomed, its engines flaring as it pursued, inching closer. Its weapons were massive, capable of obliterating smaller ships in a single shot, but here, in the dense field of debris, its advantage was diminished. Its guns could only fire in brief bursts, each shot having to be carefully aimed to avoid the risk of colliding with the floating wreckage. "Elias," Maeve's voice rang out. "They're slowing down, trying to adjust their trajectory. Now's our chance." Elias nodded, seizing the opportunity. "Divert all available power to the main cannons. Target the dreadnought's bridge and fire on my mark." The crew moved in unison, their hands moving over their consoles with practiced speed. The ship's cannons hummed to life, their energy building as they locked onto the dreadnought's bridge. "Fire," Elias commanded. The Aurora Dawn's cannons roared, sending a concentrated blast toward the dreadnought's vulnerable bridge. The shot struck with devastating precision, the energy tearing through the dreadnought's hull. Sparks and flames erupted from the impact, and for a moment, the massive ship lurched, its forward movement faltering. But before they could celebrate, the dreadnought retaliated. A volley of plasma beams shot forth, barely missing the Aurora Dawn as Elias pulled them into a sharp, evasive maneuver. The ship twisted and spun, the plasma beams slicing through space dangerously close to their hull. "Captain, we can't keep this up much longer," Maeve warned, her voice laced with urgency. "If the dreadnought manages to land a direct hit..." Elias nodded, his mind racing. They needed a new strategy, something to tip the scales in their favor. As he scanned the sensor readout, an idea began to form, one that was risky, but might just be their best shot. "Maeve," he said, turning to her, "how stable are the energy pockets in this field?" Maeve's eyes widened as she caught onto his plan. "They're highly unstable, one shot, and they could ignite a chain reaction. But Captain, if we're caught in the blast..." Elias's face was grim, but his eyes were resolute. "It's a risk we'll have to take. Calculate the nearest energy pocket that we can use to our advantage and plot an escape route. We'll draw them in, trigger the reaction, and hope it buys us enough time to get clear." Maeve nodded, already working on the calculations. "Got it. We'll need to get within range, then hit it with a low-powered shot. The rest will take care of itself." As the plan took shape, Elias turned to the rest of the bridge crew. "Everyone, brace yourselves. This is going to be close." The Aurora Dawn moved in, skimming closer to the designated energy pocket. Behind them, the dreadnought was closing the gap, its guns charging as it prepared for another assault. "Almost there," Maeve muttered, her fingers dancing over the controls as she set the shot. The ship's targeting system locked onto the energy pocket, and the crew held their breath. "Fire," Elias ordered. The shot hit the energy pocket dead on, igniting it in a blaze of blue and white light. Instantly, a massive explosion rippled through the field, the force of the blast tearing through the debris and sending shards of metal and rock flying in all directions. The Aurora Dawn lurched forward as the shockwave hit, but Elias had anticipated it, and the ship's engines flared to life, propelling them forward at full speed as they escaped the blast radius. Behind them, the dreadnought was caught in the explosion, its hull buckling as the force of the blast tore through its structure. Flames and debris erupted from its engines, and within moments, the massive ship began to break apart, fragments of its hull scattering into the void. The bridge erupted in cheers, a wave of relief washing over the crew as they realized they had survived. The Raksari dreadnought, the greatest threat they faced, was now nothing more than a smoldering wreck drifting in space. Elias allowed himself a small smile, pride filling him as he looked around at his crew. "Well done, everyone. That was a victory hard-earned." But even as he spoke, he knew that their journey was far from over. The Raksari were relentless, and as Zora's story was true, their pursuit of the Heartstone would not end here. As the cheers died down and the crew returned to their stations, Elias felt a presence beside him. Turning, he saw Zora standing at the entrance to the bridge, her expression a mix of relief and gratitude. "You saved me," she said softly, her golden eyes reflecting the soft glow of the bridge lights. "I never expected anyone to fight for me like this." Elias met her gaze, his tone steady. "We're all in this together, Zora. Whatever the Raksari are after, they won't get it through fear or force. Not while we're here." Zora nodded, her expression resolute. "There's more you should know. The Heartstone, it's not just a relic. It's alive in a way. It bonds with those who seek it with a pure heart, rejecting those driven by selfishness or cruelty. That's why the Raksari will never truly possess it." Elias looked at her, understanding dawning. Then perhaps the Heartstone is more than just a weapon. Perhaps it's a symbol, a test of who we are and what we stand for. Zora smiled faintly. "Exactly. And those who understand its purpose know that it can't be owned or controlled. It's meant to inspire, to bring hope in the darkest times. Elias felt a newfound determination settle within him. The Heartstone might be a legend, but the principles it represented, courage, unity, and resilience, were very real. And they would protect those ideals, no matter the cost. Turning back to the bridge, Elias took his place at the helm, his gaze fixed on the path ahead. They would face whatever challenges came their way, and they would do so with the strength and resolve that defined humanity. "Set course for the nearest station," he ordered, his voice filled with renewed purpose. "It's time we regroup and prepare for whatever lies ahead." As the Aurora Dawn surged forward, Elias knew that their journey was only beginning. But with his crew at his side, and Zora's hope guiding them, they were ready for what other stars had in store: the pursuit of legends. The Aurora Dawn sped through space, its sleek form cutting through the darkness as the stars streamed past. Captain Elias Morgan sat in his chair, his expression thoughtful as he reviewed the recent battle's outcome. They had narrowly escaped the Raksari dreadnought, but he knew it was only a temporary victory. The Raksari were relentless, and they wouldn't abandon their pursuit so easily, not while Zara remained aboard the Aurora Dawn. Elias felt the weight of responsibility pressing on him. This wasn't just a rescue mission anymore. It was something far greater, bound to ancient secrets and promises. First Officer Maeve Carter approached him, her face thoughtful as she handed him a data tablet. "Captain, the crew's in good spirits after that last encounter, but they're wondering what our next move is. Everyone's on edge, waiting for the Raksari to strike again." Elias took the tablet, glancing at the reports before setting it aside. "They'll come, Maeve. The Raksari are ruthless, but they're also strategic. Now that we've thwarted them, they'll be more cautious, and that gives us a bit of time." "Time for what?" Maeve asked, her brows furrowing. "To learn more about what we're protecting," Elias said, glancing toward the corridor that led to Zara's quarters. "Zara knows more than she's told us, I can feel it. But we're dealing with ancient secrets, things her people have guarded for centuries." Maeve nodded, understanding his intentions. "You think there's more to this Heartstone than just its myth?" Elias leaned back, his gaze distant. If the Heartstone is truly alive, as Zara suggested, then it's not a mere artifact. It's a beacon, one that calls to those who seek it. The Raksari are relentless because they believe it's the key to some hidden power, but I don't think they understand its true purpose. Maeve sighed, crossing her arms. "Then maybe it's time we learned the truth from Zara." Later that evening, Elias knocked gently on Zara's door. The soft chime echoed through the corridor, and after a moment, the door slid open to reveal Zara's quarters. She looked up from where she sat by the viewport, her golden eyes reflecting the vastness of space beyond. "Captain," she greeted him, her voice soft but welcoming. "Please come in." Elias stepped inside, taking a seat across from her. The room was quiet, filled only with the soft hum of the ship's systems. For a moment, they simply sat in silence, the weight of unspoken words settling between them. "Zara," Elias began, his voice gentle, "we faced the Raksari together, and will continue to protect you. But I need to understand more about the Heartstone. If we're going to defend it, and you, we need to know what we're up against." Zara's gaze dropped to her hands, her fingers tracing delicate patterns along the fabric of her tunic. She seemed to be gathering her thoughts, wrestling with memories that had remained buried for too long. "My people, the Varelians, were once peaceful explorers," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "We roamed the stars, seeking knowledge, learning from other civilizations. But that was a long time ago. We eventually discovered something that changed us." She paused, glancing up at him with an expression filled with sorrow. "We found the Heartstone on a distant planet, hidden within the ruins of an ancient civilization. It was unlike anything we have ever encountered, a glowing crystal that pulsed with a life of its own. My ancestors believed it was a gift, a relic left behind by beings who had ascended beyond the physical realm." Elias listened, his curiosity deepening. "And what happened when they brought it back?" Zora's eyes shimmered with a mixture of reverence and fear. The Heartstone is more than just a crystal. It connects to those who seek it, almost like it chooses them. It responds to purity of intent, to those with noble hearts, but it also rejects those with selfish or dark motives. My people understood this, and they vowed to protect it, to keep it safe from those who would misuse its power. Elias leaned forward, his attention focused. So why do the Raksari believe it's a weapon? What do they think it can do? Zara shook her head slowly. The Raksari are consumed by a hunger for power. They believe the Heartstone will grant them the ability to control life itself, to bend others to their will. They see it as a source of unlimited strength, something that will make them unstoppable. Her voice grew softer, tinged with sadness. But they don't understand the Heartstone's true nature. It's not meant to be used for power. It's a symbol, a guide. It reflects the soul of the one who seeks it. And those who approach it with greed or malice will find only emptiness. Elias absorbed her words, a sense of resolve hardening within him. Then our mission isn't just to protect you, Zara. It's to keep the Heartstone safe from those who would destroy everything it stands for. Zara looked at him, a faint glimmer of hope in her eyes. Thank you, Captain. I've carried this burden alone for so long. Knowing that there are others who understand, it means more than I can say. Elias gave a nod, his gaze steady. You're not alone anymore, Zara. Whatever lies ahead, we'll face it together. The next morning, Maeve gathered the senior crew in the briefing room, a map of their sector displayed on the holographic screen. As Elias entered, the murmurs quieted, and all eyes turned to him. We're facing an enemy that won't stop, Elias began, his voice clear and confident. But now we know what's at stake. The Heartstone is more than just a relic. It's a part of our galaxy's history, something meant to inspire and unite, not destroy. He gestured to the map. The Raksari dreadnought may have been destroyed, but they'll send more. We need to stay ahead of them, find a way to protect Zara and the Heartstone from falling into their hands. Kellen, the tactical officer, spoke up. Captain, if we want to stay out of their reach, we'll need to move fast. I suggest we head toward the Tylerus system. It's a dense star cluster with plenty of asteroid fields and hidden regions where we can lay low. Elias nodded thoughtfully. It's a good plan, Kellen. But we also need to consider reaching out to our allies. The Raksari's influence is spreading, and if they're willing to bring their full force to capture Zara, they'll do the same to anyone standing in their way. Maeve leaned forward, a determined look in her eyes. There's a coalition of independent systems near the Tylerus border. They may be willing to help if they understand the threat the Raksari pose. We could make contact, see if they're open to an alliance. Then it's settled, Elias said. We'll head toward the Tylerus system, reach out to the coalition, and plan our next steps from there. Our priority is to keep Zara and the Heartstone safe. As the Aurora Dawn set course for Tylerus, Zara remained on the bridge, watching the stars slip by with a quiet determination. She had spent so long running, hiding from those who sought to exploit her people's legacy. But now, for the first time, she felt a sense of purpose, a strength she hadn't known she possessed. Elias noticed her standing by the viewport and approached her, his expression gentle. How are you holding up? Zara looked at him, a small smile playing on her lips. Better than I expected. For a long time, I thought I was alone in this fight. But now I feel like I finally have allies, people who understand. Elias nodded. You're part of our crew now, Zara. We protect each other, and we'll protect the Heartstone. Just as he finished speaking, an alarm blared, and Maeve's voice cut through the bridge. Captain, we've got company, 3 ships approaching fast. Raksari signatures. Elias's jaw tightened. Battle stations. All hands, prepare for evasive maneuvers. The bridge sprang to life as the crew scrambled to their stations. The Raksari ships appeared on the view screen, sleek and menacing, their weapon systems already charging. They had found them faster than anticipated, a relentless pursuit that left no room for error. Maeve, keep us moving. We'll use the asteroid field ahead to our advantage, Elias ordered, his voice calm and steady. The Aurora Dawn veered toward the asteroid field, weaving through the massive rocks with agility. The Raxari ships followed, their cannons firing sporadically, each blast lighting up the darkness as the ships maneuvered between the asteroids. As they dove deeper into the field, the Raxari ships struggled to keep pace, their larger frames ill-suited for the tight spaces and unpredictable terrain. Elias took advantage of the chaos, directing the Aurora Dawn's cannons to fire strategically, targeting the Raxari ships' engines and weapon systems. Direct hit on one of their ships, Kellen reported, a grin spreading across his face. They're losing control. The Raxari ship spun out, colliding with an asteroid and erupting in a burst of flames and debris. But the other two ships continued their pursuit, relentless in their mission to capture Zara. Maeve's voice rang out, her tone urgent. "Captain, we can't keep this up much longer. The engines are overheating, and we're running low on power." Elias's mind raced, searching for a solution, and then an idea sparked, a risky maneuver, but one that could turn the tide. "Prepare to release a plasma charge behind us," he ordered. "We'll create a temporary cloud that should mask our heat signature and confuse their sensors." Kellen nodded, setting the plasma charge as the ship's thrusters powered down momentarily. The charge exploded behind them, creating a dense cloud of energy that enveloped the ship. The Raxari ships, momentarily blinded, veered off course, their sensors scrambled. "Now full power to the engines," Elias commanded. "Let's put some distance between us and them." The Aurora Dawn surged forward, leaving the Raxari ships floundering in the plasma cloud. Within minutes, they had cleared the asteroid field, and the enemy ships faded from the sensors. A wave of relief swept over the bridge, and Elias allowed himself a brief moment to breathe. "We did it," Maeve said, a hint of pride in her voice. "They won't find us for a while, not after that move." Elias looked at Zara, who stood beside him, her expression a mixture of gratitude and wonder. She had trusted him, and he had delivered on that trust, protecting her against an enemy that would stop at nothing. "Thank you, Captain," Zara said quietly, her voice filled with emotion. "I don't know what the future holds, but for the first time, I feel hope." Elias gave her a reassuring nod. "As long as we're together, Zara, there's nothing the Raxari, or anyone else, can do to stop us." With the Aurora Dawn safely out of reach, Elias knew that their journey was far from over. The Raxari would regroup, and more battles lay ahead. But for now, they had bought themselves time to learn, to prepare, and to defend the Heartstone against those who sought to corrupt its purpose. Together, they would face the trials to come, bound by a promise to protect not only each other, but the legacy of the Heartstone, a legacy that held the power to change the galaxy and perhaps to inspire hope in even the darkest of times. Secrets of the Heartstone. The journey through the Thylaris system was quieter than Elias had anticipated. They were deep in Raxari territory, yet after their narrow escape in the asteroid field, there had been no sign of pursuit. It was a silence that both comforted and unnerved him. The Raxari were known for their persistence. If they had withdrawn, it was likely only to regroup and return with greater force. But for now, the Aurora Dawn had a momentary reprieve, a chance to understand the stakes of their mission and unlock the secrets of the Heartstone. The ship's lights were dimmed for the night shift, casting long shadows across the bridge. Elias couldn't sleep, and his thoughts turned to Zara and the mysteries she carried with her. She had spoken of the Heartstone with reverence, as if it were a living thing, something more than just a symbol. But what was it really? A weapon? A relic? A force of unknown power? He needed answers that only Zara could provide. Elias left the bridge and made his way down to Zara's quarters, his footsteps soft against the metal floors. When he reached her door, he paused, a strange sense of trepidation settling over him. He had faced countless battles, commanded through chaos and uncertainty, but this felt different, deeper, more personal. With a steadying breath, He pressed the door chime. The door slid open, and Zara looked up from where she was seated, cross-legged, in the middle of the room. Her golden eyes reflected the dim light, and for a moment, Elias saw something ancient and wise within them, as if she carried the weight of ages in her gaze. "Captain," she greeted him with a slight nod. "I had a feeling you'd come." Elias took a step inside, letting the door slide shut behind him. "I need to understand more about the Heartstone, Zara. The crew. We're all risking our lives to protect you and whatever secrets you hold. I need to know what we're truly up against." Zara motioned for him to sit across from her, and he lowered himself to the floor. There was a quiet intensity in her posture, a calmness that seemed almost otherworldly. She closed her eyes for a moment, as if gathering her thoughts, and when she spoke, her voice was a soft murmur that seemed to resonate with something beyond the physical. "The Heartstone isn't just an artifact, Captain," she began. "It's something far older than my people, older than any known civilization in the galaxy. The Varelians were chosen to guard it, but even we do not fully understand its origin or purpose. The stories passed down from generation to generation speak of it as a remnant of the first ones, beings who lived at the dawn of the galaxy and wielded a power beyond our understanding." Elias listened, captivated, as Zara continued. "The first ones left behind the Heartstone as a reminder, a beacon for those who would come after. They knew that civilizations would rise and fall, that darkness would emerge in the hearts of some. The Heartstone was meant to guide, to protect. It's said to possess the power to connect with the minds and spirits of those who seek it with purity of purpose." Elias frowned, trying to comprehend the enormity of her words. "So, the Raxari believe it can be controlled, that they can harness this power for their own gain." Zara's expression darkened, her eyes clouding with sadness. "Yes, they believe it will grant them supremacy, a way to subjugate and control other species. But they don't understand that the Heartstone's power can't be wielded by those with selfish or malicious intent. It has a will of its own, and it rejects those who seek to manipulate it." Elias nodded slowly, a new understanding dawning on him. "So that's why the Raxari need you. They believe you know how to unlock its power." She sighed, her gaze distant. "My people were entrusted with the knowledge of how to communicate with it, but not to control it. We were taught to respect it, to protect it from those who would exploit it. The Raxari tortured my people, demanding the secret to wielding it. They killed those who refused to cooperate." Elias's hands clenched into fists as he listened, a surge of anger coursing through him. He had known the Raxari were ruthless, but hearing Zara's story made their cruelty feel personal. "Zara," he said softly, his voice filled with compassion, "you're not alone anymore. Whatever the Raxari have done, whatever they still want, we'll protect you. The Aurora Dawn and its crew were committed to this fight." Zara looked at him, her golden eyes shimmering with gratitude. "Thank you, Captain. I never expected to find such kindness, such dedication. I thought I would be running forever." Elias placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Not anymore. As long as you're with us, you have a family, and we'll stand by you until the end." The next morning, the Aurora Dawn approached the Xylaris Coalition's main outpost, a vast orbital station surrounded by smaller ships and docking platforms. Elias hoped that the Coalition, a loose alliance of independent systems wary of the Raxari's growing influence, would recognize the importance of the Heartstone and join their cause. But alliances in this region were fragile, and trust was hard-won. Maeve and Elias stood at the communications console as a holographic image of Counselor Ryan appeared before them. Ryan was an older man with a commanding presence and a cautious expression that suggested he didn't entirely trust the strangers before him. "Captain Morgan," Ryan greeted him, his voice steady. "Your request for asylum is unusual. The Coalition is hesitant to get involved in matters related to the Raxari." Elias took a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. "Counselor Ryan, I understand your reluctance, but this isn't just about the Raxari. It's about something far greater. The artifact we protect, the Heartstone, could shift the balance of power in this entire region. The Raksari want to use it to subjugate independent systems like yours. If they succeed, none of us will be safe. Ryan's eyes narrowed, skepticism evident on his face. The Heartstone is a legend, Captain, a story told to children. How can we believe you? At that moment, Zara stepped forward, her presence immediately commanding attention. Her eyes met Ryan's, and in a calm, measured voice, she spoke. I am Zara of the Virelian people, guardians of the Heartstone for generations. I understand your doubts, Counselor, but I carry the legacy of my ancestors, a promise to protect the Heartstone from those who would misuse it. If the Raksari are not stopped, they will bring ruin to us all. Ryan studied her, his expression softening slightly. And you believe this Heartstone can be used as a weapon? Zara shook her head. No, it cannot be wielded like a tool of destruction. It's a symbol of unity, a guide to those who seek to protect and create. But in the hands of those who would twist its purpose, it could become a catalyst for oppression. The counselor was silent, his gaze thoughtful. Finally, he nodded. Very well, Captain Morgan. The Coalition will provide temporary asylum and aid for your crew. But know this, we are risking much by aligning with you. The Raksari do not take betrayal lightly. Elias inclined his head in gratitude. Thank you, Counselor. We understand the risks, and we won't forget your support. As the transmission ended, Maeve turned to him, a glint of relief in her eyes. That went better than expected. We have allies now, and a safe place to regroup. Elias nodded, though he knew the safety was temporary. The Raksari would soon learn of their location, and he had no intention of allowing their allies to bear the full brunt of the conflict. They needed a plan, a way to confront the Raksari that didn't put the entire coalition at risk. 2 days later, Elias and Zara met in the observation room, where the stars stretched out before them in a stunning panorama. Elias had asked Zara to join him, hoping that together they could devise a way to protect the Heartstone without resorting to endless hiding and running. We can't keep running forever, Zara, he said, his voice thoughtful. The Raksari will continue to pursue us. We need a plan that doesn't rely on endless retreat. Zara looked at him, her expression sullen. There may be a way, but it's risky. The Heartstone is said to be drawn to certain energies, places of great peace or great suffering. It seeks balance, and it can resonate with those who carry its purpose in their hearts. Elias listened, intrigued. So if we could find one of these places, it might be able to amplify its protective force. Zara nodded slowly. Yes, but it would require someone who is attuned to its purpose, someone willing to connect with it deeply. Such a bond would be intense and dangerous. The Heartstone can reveal truths and memories, sometimes painful ones. Only someone truly aligned with its purpose can survive the connection. Elias's gaze softened as he looked at her, admiration and understanding in his eyes. And you think you're the one to do it? Zara's expression was resolute. I have carried this duty my entire life, Captain. If I am meant to bond with the Heartstone, then so be it. I would rather give everything I have than let it fall into the wrong hands. Elias placed a hand on her shoulder, a sense of profound respect filling him. Then we'll help you. Whatever you need, the Aurora Dawn and its crew will stand by you. They spent hours planning, devising a route to a distant planet rumored to have been a sanctuary for ancient civilizations, a place of great peace that might resonate with the Heartstone's purpose. If they could reach it, Zara could attempt the bond, strengthening the Heartstone's protective force and making it nearly impossible for the Raksari to wield. The journey would be dangerous, and the risks were high, but Elias felt a newfound sense of hope and determination. Together, they would face whatever came, trusting in the strength of their bond and the legacy of the Heartstone. As they left the observation room, Elias looked at Zara, his heart filled with an unspoken promise. Whatever lay ahead, he would protect her and the Heartstone, not just for the sake of their survival, but for the hope of a galaxy that longed for unity and peace.